A senior St John paramedic who was one of the first on the scene at the Noor Mosque shooting is appealing to the Prime Minister to fully fund the ambulance service rather than having it hand the hat around. St John is up to 74% government funded and the rest comes from donations. And right now, paramedics are locked in a pay dispute. Dean Brown, a 23-year veteran of St John, was prompted to write an open letter to Jacinda Ardern after the organisation featured an online advertisement asking for donations to help crews that responded to the Christchurch tragedy. The ad used images of ambulances attending the shootings, a move that Dean Brown says showed a complete lack of respect to the families of the dead and wounded.
It was on the St John donation webpage, and it was asking for donations towards the crews that responded to the terrorist attack on March 15th. And I just felt, and my colleagues have felt, well, that's using this tragedy to raise funds for a service which we believe should already be fully funded.
So what is your issue with the way the St John's ambulance service is funded?
I don't believe that New Zealand community and New Zealand as a whole should have to be funding what I believe and my colleagues believe is one of three core emergency services. And it does restrict a number of things that can be provided to the people when we rely at this stage on 25% of the funding to be donations. I don't believe we can provide the very best services we can to our communities.
So where does that leave you?
My and a number of my colleagues' aim is we'd like to see the ambulance service fully funded. I personally would like to see it nationalised the same as fire and police. I believe we're one of three core emergency services and the New Zealand public deserve to have the very best service we can provide, and that's why we do this job. We're here because we care for others, the same as everybody who works in emergency services, and we just want to do the best we can and not be hampered, I guess, by the fact that we're constantly having to source funds from the community. And I guess that's why that ad sort of struck a note with us. You don't see fire and police having to try and fundraise to support their services and provide the services they do to New Zealand.
So you say you're one of three core services. Explain to us what you were doing on that day at the mosques.
At the mosque, my role, I work as a rapid response unit, so my role, I work single crewed, and my role was I entered the mosque with 4 heavily armed police to look for survivors, triage them, and then help extricate them with several of my colleagues who are all experienced officers who came in, and we took the survivors out and got them to hospital, passed them on to crews to get to hospital as quick as we could.
So pretty confronting work.
But one of my colleagues, I think he's an ex-colleague, ex-St John now, put it, the injuries we saw are not unusual for us, but the extent and the number in one short period of time was confronting. But as I say, I'm only one part of a very large team, amazing crew of people, the police, the ambulance crews, the comm centre staff, the hospital staff, the community as a whole, everyone involved, even those who gave blood, everybody who's done anything, and the community have been so generous to us. Our managers within the organisation have provided a great level of support, and I thank them for that. But it's one of those things you can't ever predict or train for.
And Dean, I understand that, but I suppose the point is you guys are having to hand the cap around for donations in order to sustain that work, aren't you?
And that for us is the big issue. We don't think, I personally believe that the communities shouldn't have to provide funding for, from their own pockets for an ambulance service. That could go back into their own households, into their own communities in better ways. I believe that we need to be fully funded, the same as police and fire, and run a world-class ambulance service providing it for New Zealand.
So you've written an open letter to the Prime Minister. What are you saying to her? What do you want from her?
First of all, in my letter I expressed our deepest sympathies and condolences to the families and friends and communities of those who were lost, our admiration for the way the government has responded and respect for the humanity, compassion shown. But it is really, I believe we're at a crisis point, and we need to get government involvement in to fund our service, or the ambulance service for New Zealand, to the best level that it can be. And I personally, and I know a number of my colleagues, would like to see us nationalised.
And that is longtime paramedic Dean Brown speaking there. In response to that, we have a statement here from St John from the CEO, Peter Bradley. And he says that there was an overwhelming number of requests to give donations in support after the Christchurch massacres. Because of that, he says, we added a Christchurch donate section onto our webpage late Friday. This was never promoted or advertised or listed elsewhere. Due to internal feedback from our people, the link was removed first thing Monday morning. It didn't sit well with our people, he said, and it was seen as insensitive. Peter Bradley goes on to say that I agree and I wasn't comfortable with it when I saw it. He says, however, this was not a deliberate ask or advertisement for donations. We were simply responding to public demand and providing a channel through which New Zealanders could show their support and assistance. He goes on to say that the current funding model, which has been in place for many years, needs to be addressed once and for all. St John provides a high-quality emergency ambulance service, he says, and our people do a magnificent job, including their response to the horrific events in Christchurch on Friday the 15th. I couldn't be prouder of them. That's from Peter Bradley from St John.